Now, a couple of years ago when the bushfires were raging, so were the left trying to make it all about a politician, despite the fact that we are the land of flood and rain and fire and have been for millennia. The reality is that weather is more political than ever before. Now, before anyone wants to half-interpret what I'm talking about, let me be very clear. The climate, of course, is changing. You cannot have 7 billion people on the planet, multiple industrial revolutions, and endless development up and down the coast without something happening to our weather. No question about it. But the idea that every single storm, every single flood, every single fire is exactly the cause of climate change is, of course, overdoing it. These were the same people who told us it would never rain again, but now there's flooding as far as the eye can see up and down the coast of New South Wales. The reality is that the extremes are wrong. Those who say that the sky is falling and will fall forever, or those who say there's nothing to see here, both are wrong. But a couple of years ago, people tried to use the fires to punish an individual politician. Somehow it was all Scott Morrison's fault, because his position wasn't aggressive enough on climate change. His sin wasn't a lack of action on climate change, it was to win the 2019 election. So the narrative was that somehow the government had not done enough. And even if the craziest version of a Greens branch meeting ever came true, it would still flood. There would still be fires. There would still be drought. Because while Australia is an important part of the world, it is not the entire globe. China can produce what Australia does in just 16 days if we stopped everything. China goes nowhere near net zero till 2060. It has no further restrictions on it when it comes to the Paris Accord until 2030. Put simply, they can continue to do what they want till 2030, while in this country, there is a choice at the upcoming election. You can go too far with the Greens, you can go virtually too far with the Labor Party, or you can be where we currently are with the current government when it comes to 2030. There are consequences to all of this. It's up to you what you think those consequences are. But anyone who is telling you that vote for me and the rain will stop falling or the fires will stop happening, they are lying to you. But one of the things that came out of the bushfires a couple of years ago, as I said, was this attempt to not just attack a Prime Minister, and all Prime Ministers deserve to be attacked, especially when they get it wrong, but to dehumanise the person that is Scott Morrison. And they're trying to do it again. Now, we weren't on air in January a couple of years ago, but we are right now. And I'm going to play whack-a-mole with every one of these liars. These people want to run the country. This person wants to be in charge of our borders.
Where we have right now a crisis unfolding that is threatening the safety and the security of Australians in their own homes and businesses, and the Morrison-Joyce government once again has gone missing.
Disgraceful. Again, a talking point echoed by somebody you've never heard of, but he's a senator in Queensland.
But the one thing you won't see behind me is anyone from the federal government. There's no army personnel helping with this clean-up. We've seen Scott Morrison go missing before when it came to the bushfires. He can't do it again. Currently, Scott Morrison is MIA. We need him to pick up the phone and get resources here straight away. We know he didn't hold a hose. He can at least hold a phone. He can get resources here helping people today.
And of course, the bloke who will pretend that he's oh so bipartisan like he was during the pandemic when he wasn't, again now with the floods. Remember, by the way, when the floods were in Albo's own electorate, he buggered off to play politics in Western Australia.
It is beyond my comprehension that the government still continues to say it's okay that the Emergency Response Fund has just sat there completely inadequate, and the fact the government continues to defend its position on the Emergency Response Fund I find quite staggering.
All of this is political and all of it is just garbage. All of it is about narrative. Now, if there's one theme that has been through this show for as long as I have had it, be it once a week on a Friday night to multiple different backgrounds, to SD, HD, and God forbid 4K, the media is not interested in detail. They want to build narratives, good guys, bad guys. If they think that you're a good guy, they will hide the reality. And if they think you're a bad guy, they will let anything be said. The media wants a change of government. So any claim being made in service of that gets a high five. It means you get garbage like this from a bloke who should know better, and I thought was better than this.
Are you embarrassed that ordinary Australians are having to do so much work in this? Ordinary Australians are having to get themselves to remote areas in their dinghies, wading through floodwaters to help people, to take them food and to make sure they're all right.
No, Koshi, I mean, that's the Australian spirit. That's what you and I would do for our neighbours. And
absolutely.
It's what
and
people do
we
in
want
extremis.
the ADF to do that for us as
no,
well.
I'm not embarrassed by that. And the ADF is doing it.
It's such garbage. Is the expectation that there is a police officer for every one of the 25 million people who live in the country? There's apparently a nurse for every one of the 25 million people in the country? Is there supposed to be a soldier that's just for you? Does the fire department exist just for you? No. Now, under all of these people's logic, you would have sent the entire ADF to Queensland 2 weeks ago. Then it would have been Lismore. Well, then what do you do when the flooding hits Sydney? What do you do when it hits the south? I repeat, it's all about narrative. A narrative that is being cashed in on by people who think if you vote for them, it will stop raining. The fires will suddenly extinguish themselves. It's all garbage, and it is all, of course, in terms of personal power for them. One of the fake independents decided to tweet this one today. Well done to Chris Kenny for noticing it and many of those things from Labor Party people today. According to this person, Scott Morrison has botched, quote, the bushfire response, COVID quarantine, COVID vax supply, submarine deal, his religious discrimination bill, action on anything important, climate, federal ICAC, a safer parliament for women, and now the flood response. How many of those you know are real versus made-up Twitter stuff? Safer parliament for women. Oh, yeah. And all of this, of course, leads to the narrative that gets pushed right back into the funnel, underlined and sent back to everyone again via taxpayer television.
How is it possible that such a catastrophe could happen yet again when the country's had endless opportunity to learn how to better prepare for and respond to large-scale natural disasters? And why, in so many cases, have volunteers and ordinary citizens, instead of authorities, ended up having to rescue people in dire need? Elias Kluwer reports.
Seriously. All right, everyone who's half paying attention and making shit up. This is what the ADF are doing. This is what the person in charge of the operation told us today. When Lismore needed the Australian Defence Force, they didn't have to come from Sydney. They went from their local reserve unit, and the 41st Battalion immediately supported by that local community, says the Major General. What I can say from an ADF perspective is we have thrown the resources we had available immediately to respond to save those lives. So what did they do today? Well, now there are over 2,000 members of the ADF that are currently helping out because, you know, it hasn't been totally cleared up in Queensland. 900 people are helping there. 1,200 people are helping today. More will be there tomorrow and needed wider across the map. So, smartasses, KK, are you paying attention? You fool who plans one day to sit around a cabinet table? Well, here's what the ADF is doing. They are currently cleaning up in Lismore, Byron Bay, Broadwater, Cabbage Tree Island, Port Macquarie, Grafton, Tweed Heads, Crabbles Creek, Ocean Shores and Chindra. They are dropping food and water in Casino, Grafton, Lawrence, Lismore, Maclean, Wardell, Woodburn. Oh, yeah, and if they don't have enough helicopters, here's the actual facts about the helicopters. There are 10 of them in the air. 8 helicopters are based out of Oakleigh to support southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales. What are they doing? Aerial reconnaissance, search and rescue, giving people food. Meantime, Seahawk helicopters, what are they doing? They're coming out of Nowra, doing exactly the same thing. Now, I get it. We are in an election and people would like to see a change of government on the left of this country. But how dare you people pretend that any one individual is the source or solution to your problems? What sort of spoilt babies exist in the media or the political establishment that think that the ADF is there to solve all of your problems and that the entire world exists just for you? In flood, in fire, Australians help each other out. because it is the decent thing to do. It is supplementary to the people who are professional and also know what they are doing. But that's how it works. It's how it's always worked. It's how it always will work. And anyone telling you any different is bullshitting to you.